Hey guys, welcome to our review of Arcane Season 2. Wow. Oh, as you can see, Other Joe is still on vacation, coming back approximately Friday. So he'll probably be back in time for Act 3. This video is going to cover Act 1 and Act 2 because they're releasing them in 3-episode chunks. And yeah, so last we spoke about Arcane was way back in 2021. Whoa, 3 years. What a grueling wait, because this, in my opinion, one of the greatest video game adaptations of all time, one of the greatest shows, one of the greatest animated shows of all time, and honestly, one of the greatest shows of all time. That's how much praise I had for Arcane Season 1. Do you agree?
Yeah, it was great.
It's like 10 out of 10 levels. So now, after 3 years and my short-term memory loss and long-term memory loss and brain damage, I forgot a lot of the plot elements. So I had to go and, there was a refresher on Netflix, a little recap, but I did more due diligence and watched several recap videos on YouTube, which is what you guys should be doing as well. I think that's kind of required because it has been so long. But how do we think that Act 1 and Act 2 did? Well, for me personally, Act 1 started kind of slow. This is kind of, catching us up, but almost has to, right? Has to start because you have to deal with the rocket attack from Jinx at the end of Season 1. Who lives? Who dies? So once you get that set up, and then you get the continuation of these storylines. Now, granted, these characters and that Season 1 was so good, so compelling that, otherwise, from the cliffhanger, it would have been fine just on its own and something that I would have rewatched multiple times. But you run the risk of, ruining things by continuing it and, having the storylines not be anywhere near as good as the original. This is a lot of problems that they've had with sequels in the future. But I gotta say, not only was the story eventually super, super satisfying, especially in Act 2, but just the level that I think of love, attention, passion, talent that went into Season 2 definitely won me over as I was watching it. Initially, a little resistant to it, so curious. I care less about some of these individual character storylines, but as they all sort of start to converge in on itself, it's like, aha. So whereas the first would have been a little lower, those ratings go up when you see what it then results in. And right away, we have to talk about Fortiche's animation studio. My lord, I did not think... Look, the animation for Arcane Season 1 was a 10 out of 10. The animation for Arcane Season 2 is better. It's fucking better. It's more colorful. It's more bright. It's more complex. The battles are on another level. If there was an 11 out of 11, which there's not, I would consider assigning the first ever 11 out of 10 to, this type of animation. Well, the first 11 out of 10 is Warhammer 40K's universe and lore. But this would be the second because this is... It elevates every single episode. Whether I'm interested in the individual subplots and characters that I'm watching in Act 1 of Season 2, it's all elevated by the animation because it's just so beautiful to look at. Every pause is like a mural. Every, frame is like a painted picture. And to see it all in motion and in this 3D effect, it's just amazing. So while I thought it was somewhat slow in Act 1, kind of setting up and bringing some new characters into the fold, I thought Act 2 pays it off wonderfully, and we start to hit 10 out of 10s again, and I am so excited for Act 3. Alex, what did you think of Arcane Season 2?
Yeah, I agree that it started off a little slow. It took me a little while to try to figure out what I felt like this had been a little bit of a step down. Now, I really like the season, but the first one was excellent. Like, the first one just rises above, like, Season 1 rises above everything else. And I think I miss Silco. And I think I needed that, like, a really charismatic, interesting character that has that gravitas that I just can't wait to see on screen. And then we didn't really have, like, a focal point in the very beginning, especially towards Act 1. Now, it definitely picks back up. So it's not something that you have to wait too long to get back into. But I'm really like a lot of these characters. There's some new added stuff that they're throwing in, stuff they've been teasing for too long. Like the last 10 seconds of every episode in Act 1 was teasing towards something. It's like, stop teasing me to show off this, what you want to show off. But now we're at the point in the season where I just can't wait to watch the third one. I hope they stick the landing. I do feel that there's a little bit of diminishment, but I mean, honestly, when you reach that peak, like, I think Season 1 was like peak animated television. There really is no room to go but down, and it's not quite on the same level. Mm-hmm. Maybe the last 3 episodes are just so good it elevates, Act 1 of Season 2 for me, but.
Man, so I agree with you. Season 1, emotional moments made me tear up, made me feel, get that lump in your throat. And Act 1, Season 2, didn't really have those. Act 2, Season 2, I had a few of those. And so I was like, okay, good. I think some of the music vignettes, the little music videos that they like to do, a little weaker than in Season 1. But I think that's made up for by the extremely awesome animation and battle sequences, fights between characters that are champions in the game and that are not champions in the game and that are never be champions in the game because of their fate. And I really like how over this 3-year break, Riot Games really got their act together, and apparently Arcane originally was not really canon, kind of in its own kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And then Riot said, no.
This is too popular. We
got to make this canon. And so they kind of cleaned up some stuff, went ahead and went forward with that. So now we've got canon, and we're kind of marching. So for fans who don't know the League of Legends lore, it's interesting, it's depth. And then fans who do, it's even more so as you get to see these plot lines unfold and kind of match what you know with the particular champions that you've been using for more than a decade. Goddamn. Arcane Season 2. I did not think you could do it again. But by the end of Act 2, and I rewatched some of the episodes, initially I was kind of like distracted. I was, doing other things, and I was like, no. This deserves more time and attention. So I went back and rewatched some of the things that I had skipped. And I just got a greater appreciation for what's going on here. I think the story is bigger, more complex, and because of that, it can feel a little less focused. That family dynamic, Vander, V, Powder, what's his name? Silco. That stuff was so tight, so together, all intertwined. Here, now we're introducing new characters that have their own family drama, their own family legacies to live up to. For example, Caitlyn, and then Mbessa, this Noxian fucking general, and bringing her own troops in and kind of, going on this dictator-like side plot. And then introducing some of the things I think are slightly less effective. We'll get to some of the less effective subplots. For example, Black Rose. I think this Black Rose subplot kind of comes a little out of nowhere. Now, clearly it's setting something up for Act 3, and it may end up paying off, and so my opinion will change accordingly. But I think that's kind of some of the weakest parts.
We're adding a lot. And so you can just picture the writing room where they're trying to pitch ideas and, like, we have to go bigger and better. It's like, no, you don't. You have this amazing formula. It worked to the point where it's universal praise across the board. The risk with going bigger is sometimes you expand so much that you do lose that focus, and I definitely felt it in Act 1 of Season 2, where it's like, man, we don't feel like
Act 1. Super interested in Vi and Jinx.
Jinx.
Yeah,
Okay.
Jinx. That's where I'm at. And then I like some of the Caitlyn stuff, and I like the Mbessa stuff. But, when we get to Jace and Echo and Heimerdinger, I'm a little less engaged, which might end up, it does improve in Act 2, gotta say. Some of the craziest visuals. So already the shit was 10 out of 10, 11 out of 10 on visuals, and then they start experimenting with their own visuals when you get into what Jace discovers and Victor and how that plays out. And some of the flashbacks are done in this beautiful, this is Act 2 watercolor, seeing some of the history between Violet and Powder, now Jinx, was just done masterfully and beautifully and really, really great. So, we could do some individual episode talk, but I think let's go ahead and start with what would you rate Act 1, and then what would you rate as a whole Act 2? So start with Act 1.
So just the first three, just like initial feeling without going through each individual one. I'm thinking like maybe a 7. I was actually a little disappointed. Again, just my expectations were so high. Like I know how solid their art and the writing is, and so it just was kind of messy. It was unfocused, and we had just come off something like truly special. And I get that it's a new season, we got to reset up some things. It just wasn't as tight as I really wanted it to be.
Combining all my individual scores from the individual episodes, I could average it out to a 7 as well. I'm going to bump mine to an 8 just because that's reflecting that 11 out of 10 that doesn't exist in the animation. It's just beautiful to look at, amazing to rewatch, just immerse yourself in the world. So I'm going to go 8 out of 10 on Act 1. And then as we go into Act 2, here you have some real payoffs. In Act 1, it was a lot of a setup. Act 2, you have Jinx's rise to being a hero. And I'm like, how the hell is this going to happen? Because literally she just did horrific things. And am I going to believe that? We have the payoff with Vander and I wonder if I should a new League of Legends character that appears that I play with, the jungler, the famous Warwick. I'll just say it, and then Singed, given a backstory and given depth and given a reason, a lot of characters' reasons for what they do. Love, I know, Alex, you like that. The whole love stuff, but love does make you do some crazy ass things. Again, one of the weaker parts, Black Rose stuff. Again, set up for Act 3. This is where it starts to happen in Act 2, not so much Act 1. But you have this confrontation between the V and Jinx, and that I think was the strong part of Act 1. Here you have them transitioning to being sisters again because of a culmination, and basically the only thing that could ever bring these two together was one person. And so while I felt like the pacing was a little rushed in this, and we needed a little bit more depth there when both of these make a turn to sort of team up and get back together, I think the justification for it was solid.
Do you like the time skip?
The time skip, I think, unfortunately, is a necessary evil. Mm-hmm. So yes and no. No, because I don't really like time skips almost ever. But I think I will allow it, based on where it gets in there. Also, the introduction of this new character, Isha. I thought I would hate this little girl. It's like
Timo?
I don't care about Isha. Oh yeah, Timo with the little helmet. I was like, okay, well this gives a reason why Jinx has a helmet in some of the League of Legends stuff and art. And so Isha, while her bond between Jinx and Isha to me wasn't as strong as season 1's Violet and Powder, I still understood it, and I saw it was kind of like now Jinx is becoming Violet and Vi, and so I liked it quite a bit. And ultimately, upon seeing where it headed, upon seeing the culmination of it, and basically a match to start a transition. It worked. Also loved the Victor stuff. Again, I felt a little like Victor was rushed because he was mortally injured in the explosion at the end of season 1, and then he kind of just gets up and he says, "Hi, hey Jace, bye Jace." And it just walks up. I'm like, what's happening? I don't get it. However, ultimately, I think it does pay off, and it does make some sense. I like that this whole Victor storyline of healing and becoming almost a messiah figure with his powerful Hex core technology that he wanted actually destroyed, and he didn't really want this to happen. So it's like, I should be dead, and I don't know what to do with my life, and he's just trying to bring good, and so I like that. And then basically all of the storylines coming and paying off as you've got Victor stuff, you got Mbessa stuff, you got V and Jinx and this Warwick, and it all comes in episode 6, which to me is a 10 out of 10 and one of the best ones, really setting up the final act here. So act 2 was chef's kiss, really fucking good. And then what Jace does as well, just setting into motion, like, fucking everything up. Theories are going wild right now on the internet on what all this shit means. Because if there's one knock, I felt like a lot of this stuff is either happening off screen and I'm not really seeing it. And so when another character shows up and they're acting different, it's like, fuck, I need to rewind. Did I miss something? That's like some of the stuff that I feel might be the weak bits. But I'm hoping in Act 3 they'll fill in some of the holes and gaps that we've seen.
Yeah, I definitely hope so.
What do you think in Act 2?
I think it was kind of the same for me in the beginning, the first couple episodes, but that final episode of Act 2 was just so good. I liked the Jinx becoming like a nurturing person, but there were it felt like the whole season is rushed. And we set up some things where these two characters, Kate and Vi, are supposed to hate each other, and then the next scene they're like back together, thick as thieves, and it's just like, what is happening? Why? Yeah. How is all this stuff developing? And it makes sense. Like it's not like there's giant leaps in logic. It's like these make sense if you just show me a really quick little scene, and it just doesn't feel like we need to be sprinting through some of this content. It's like we sprint through some stuff, a lot of stuff.
It's expensive, Alex. That's why I think
yeah, but right? as the person who's the consumer who's paying Netflix, it's like that onus isn't on me. They need to figure out how to write something better, and like if they need
10 minute here, 10 minute there would be good.
Yeah, I mean, don't pay Imagine Dragons any more money to do music numbers for you, and then maybe we'll get 10 minutes more in each episode. But I definitely appreciate that things felt a little bit more focused. I think some of the focus is we removed some characters. At the end of Act 1, we like lose some characters, and then we get to focus again in Act 2, and so there's just more focus from them. But as far as score goes, I think that ending was truly exceptional, but there were still some parts that I didn't love that we skipped through. And it really bothered me. It really bothered me. It felt like we're rushing through something, because it's something that I want. I played League a lot, like a lot. Like I'd get home and I'd play for 6 hours. We would play ranked. And, it's like it was a big part of my life. So I want to relish in this. I want to like wallow in how cool.
Which, from a person on the outside, because I played Lead a lot too for a while there, but I never read any of the fucking lore. Yeah. In fact, I didn't even think the game had lore.
Yeah, I knew I knew all of that stuff, and I think that they're doing a really good job. It's kind of writing their own things, but it fits and it makes sense. And so for them to feel like we're kind of sprinting through things really does kind of bother me.
And now it feels coherent with this story, and now it feels well told, coherent lore. And I'm super excited about League of Legends. I hope their game numbers go up, and I understand that Mbessa is becoming a legend here.
I quit. I won't go back to that. But they've got a bunch.
Because then that'll ruin my life. Yeah. Because I spent too much time like you, and I couldn't run the AngryJoe show. It's kind of pre-AngryJoe show, a little bit during the AngryJoe show, but a lot of fun. And this in it sucks because I want this all the time. I want this every 2 years. I want this every year, really, because that's how big the world is in League of Legends. There's the Void. There's Cho'Gath and all these creatures that come from the Void that, a whole nother dimension. There's, so many other kingdoms and areas.
There's Demacia. There's all sorts of really cool stuff. And then you get into Yordles and...
I mean, there's just so much content here. And Riot Games CEO Nicolo Laurent said it took 6 years to make the first season of Arcane. I mean, shit, and then 3 years to make season 2. So I guess they're getting a little faster, a little better. But even the people are saying, oh, man, it's been 9 years of my life. I want to do something else. I want to move on to something else. It's like, no, man, to us, it's just beginning. To us, it's like, I want to see even more. So I do think there are plans to continue telling these stories outside of our Arcane and then see other characters within the League of Legends universe. It's just going to take time. And I really want it to be the same animation. I understand that this animation studio is probably tired of doing, the same characters, the same universe. They want to move on and do other things. But I'm saying, no, this
they're
needs
tired
to
of
continue.
$250 million or their share of $250 million for this thing. That's like, I don't know.
I hope not.
I think the best thing in the world is for an artist to go, oh, my God, I'm going to have a job for the next 20 years because people love the work that I'm working on.
Yeah.
So,
I just highly recommend you guys go out and watch Arcane Season 2. Act 1, for some of you, you want to do a little prep. You want to kind of do some recaps and stick it through because, as these characters build and get more depth and get more time on them, it is worth the payoff that happens in Act 2. And I'm curious how the characters will transform even further in Act 3. I mean, we've had character switches back and forth for both V, Violet, and Jinx. Perhaps a little too much, right? Going back and forth, but every little catalyst that sets those off is somehow believable, and I get it, and I can understand it. And even Caitlyn, this turn, she lost her mom. She's got this legacy behind her, almost kind of a dictator kind of turn here, as she's out to get revenge. Great characters, great animation, great writing. This is way leagues and above. This is the kind of stuff that we enjoy. So you guys hate everything. This is the stuff that we need to set as an example. You have a Halo adaptation from Paramount Plus that gets millions and millions of dollars. I think it was like $150 million. And then you have, Arcane that gets $250 million. And frankly, more.
I don't
know
how
they spent more on Arcane. I think it was just inexperience, learning, wanting to do the animation the way that they specifically do it. I think now it would be sleeker and better, but when you have this many hours of content, because another thing is it's not short. I'm glad these aren't 20-minute episodes. Yeah. I'm glad that these are, closer to 48 and longer and sometimes shorter, but it's a payoff, and it truly is a visual treat for the eyes, and some interesting storylines that are happening here. And I just don't want to leave these characters, or I want to add to them, and it's just going to take forever, in the future. But no, not right now, okay? I'm thinking ahead too much. Here, all I have to wait till is November 23rd, and we're going to get 3 exciting new episodes. Can they stick this landing? Is it going to end on another 10 out of 10 as Act 2 ended on? That's what I'm truly excited to see, and, how they do it. So
better not be another time skip.
No, I hope not. Yeah, exactly. Then you gotta start to deduct points for that. But okay, so Act 2. Let me go ahead and get a final verdict from you for Act 2.
I'm gonna go with an 8. I really loved the end bit of it, but I think that there's too much happening off screen. I think that the character motivations, while I think that they work, and it's very easy for me to go, oh, okay, this is how it could have happened. There are things like betrayals. I need to know why, and I need to kind of see those things. It's not like.
Or character turns to almost an evil turn.
And so it's like I get it, but if they are rushing through
Jace in particular for me.
Yeah, and so it's like, well,
I know we're going to get more, though.
We'll get more explanation of that, but it's like, Caitlyn going from like, I'm going to imprison you for the rest of your life in the deepest, darkest hole, to the very next scene, I'm betraying the person who put me in power. We're gonna. It's like, come on, I need to see some of these things in order to make the story feel cohesive. And so while I do still love it, I think it's great. The ending, the last 3 episodes, it's like we're teetering here, right? Like I could very easily see myself sliding into like, hey, I'm disappointed ultimately by season 2, but they're also building up to something really big that if they nail it could, maybe not as big and powerful and great as season 1, but still deserves to be there.
For me, not as much. For me, I already think they've succeeded and in many ways surpassed season 1. They'll never have surpassed season 1 in that tight storytelling, but it's almost a different thing when you need to expand outward, when you're bringing other kingdoms and other influences from outside, and you're making the story big. You're talking about the rise of heroes, the rise of the resistance, and these figures coming into positions of leadership and things, and then the complexity of how a lot of that stuff gets unraveled by human nature, our nature, which is both helpful and destructive at the same time. I think it's just a great natural evolution. It's just, how is it told? Sometimes it does feel like they rush through it a little bit because the budget's so goddamn big and we gotta make this, and we only have a certain amount of time, and now 6 more years till we get into something else, but a lot of that stuff for me can be forgiven, and I think it only gets stronger the more episodes that I watch. I truly was a little disappointed, like you, at the beginning, and almost sometimes kind of fast forwarding through some bits. But don't do that, guys. I promise you, it does eventually, make sense. Even some of the parts where you felt like, this wasn't quite the payoff later on. So for Act 2, I'm at a 9 out of 10, maybe even a 10 out of 10. I know individually that episode 6 hits a 10. Again, as we get more context, scores can go up and down, as Alex says, and I could revisit that. But I think for now, it's a 9 out of 10 overall, with one of the best episodes, not only in the season, but throughout all of Arcane in episode 6. And even episode 5. Episode 5 also has a lot of lore drops that are really, really cool. So high quality stuff here so far through Act 1 and 2. Highly recommend that you start watching it. And Act 3 will pay off on November 23rd, which I think Joe will be back by then, but we'll probably have to watch it over the weekend, so he'll have to catch up on 6 to 9 hours of content, and we can bring that to you next week. Okay. Yeah, so that's our episode breakdown for Act 1 and Act 2 for Arcane. I think they're just running on all cylinders here, and super excited to see what they do with Act 3. That's it, guys. Thank y'all so much for watching, and we'll see what Joe has to say when he returns, and let us know what you think down in the comments below, and we'll see you guys on the next Angry Joe Show. Bye, guys.